Ondas Inc. is trading right now at 12.42 USD, which puts the stock up by 0.16 or about 1.35% so far in today's session. While a 1% move might seem like a quiet day for a company that has spent the last year behaving like a high-speed rocket, there is a massive gap between what the average person sees on a ticker and what is actually happening behind the scenes with this business. Most people looking at their phone on the Robinhood app see a drone company that is finally getting some traction in a crowded market, but the reality is far more interesting and potentially more volatile than that. The real story here is not just that Ondas is selling more robots, but that they have recently constructed a cash fortress that very few companies of this size ever managed to build. We are looking at a firm with a market cap around $5 billion that just successfully closed a massive $1 billion offering. When you realize that they are sitting on over $1.5 billion in cash while their revenue is still scaling toward the $180 million mark, you start to see the tension. They have enough capital to acquire their way into dominance, yet the market is still trying to figure out if the dilution from that capital raise is a weight around the neck of the current shareholders or the fuel for the next massive leg up. There is a common belief among those who follow the defense and tech sectors that Ondas is just another speculative play, perhaps a smaller cousin to something like Nvidia stock in terms of hype but without the established earnings. The expectation is that they will continue to burn through capital as they try to integrate complex acquisitions like Roboteam and Air Robotics. However, the reality is that the company is showing a level of operational discipline that is starting to catch institutional eyes at places like Fidelity and Schwab. If you look at the recent preliminary data, their backlog didn't just grow, it exploded by 180% in just a few months to over $65 million. This creates a curiosity loop for any serious investor because it suggests that the demand for autonomous systems is not just a trend, but a structural shift in how both governments and industrial giants operate. While most people are busy checking the latest swings in Tesla stock or Apple stock, the smart move is often to look at the infrastructure that makes the next phase of automation possible. Ondas is positioning itself as that infrastructure. If you are currently managing your own online investment through a platform like SoFi Invest or using the Interactive Brokers platform, you have likely noticed the wild swings ONDS has taken recently. We saw the stock tumble over 8% just a couple of days ago after an $8 million share sale, and that kind of volatility can be stomach-turning if you don't understand the capital reshuffle going on. The company is transitioning. They are moving their headquarters to West Palm Beach, changing their name to Ondas Inc., and even swapping out their longtime auditors for a global powerhouse like BDO. These aren't just cosmetic changes. This is a company trying to grow up and move away from the penny stock reputation it held not too long ago. They are trying to make themselves look like a standard holding you would find in any Fidelity wealth management portfolio or a core piece of an individual brokerage account. The move to bring in a major auditor and clean up the balance sheet with a billion-dollar war chest is a direct signal to the big institutions that Ondas is ready for the big leagues. The recent price action reflects a classic battle between expectation and reality. The market expected the massive dilution from the January offering to crush the stock price for months. Instead, the company priced that offering at a premium to the market at the time, which is almost unheard of for a company at this stage. It showed that there is at least one major institutional investor out there willing to bet $1 billion that the future of this company is worth much more than the current 12.42 USD price point. If you are doing your own online investing and looking for investment help on various investing sites, you have to ask yourself why a massive player would pay a premium for shares and warrants when they could have just waited for a dip. This suggests that the internal visibility on the 2026 revenue targets, which were just raised to $170 to $180 million, is much clearer to those on the inside than it is to the retail crowd checking the Robinhood stock trading charts every 10 minutes. Let's talk about the actual business for a second, because that is where the long-term value lives. Ondas isn't just one thing, they have two main engines. First, you have Ondas Autonomous Systems, which is the part of the business currently carrying the team. This includes things like the Iron Drone Raider, which is an autonomous counter-drone system that is seeing massive interest in Europe and the Middle East. With the way modern conflicts are evolving, the need for a system that can intercept other drones autonomously is through the roof. They also have the Optimus system, which was the first small drone system to get FAA certification for fully automated aerial security. This isn't just a toy, it's a high-end security tool that can fly itself, dock itself, and provide constant data. The second engine is Ondas Networks. This is the sleeper hit. They provide private wireless broadband for mission-critical things like railroads and utilities. While the drone side is flashy and gets all the headlines on SoFi stocks or various Fidelity ETFs, the wireless network side is a recurring revenue dream that could provide the stability this company needs to reach profitability, which analysts are now predicting could happen as early as this year. Comment below how many shares of Ondas you currently hold, or if you think the recent dilution makes this a no-go for your portfolio. It is always interesting to see how people are balancing the risk of new share issuance against the potential for massive revenue growth. When you compare the current trajectory of Ondas to the giants, you see a massive valuation gap. For example, Nvidia stock trades on future earnings that are already massive, whereas Ondas is trading on the potential of a market that is just beginning to scale. If you are using a Fidelity mobile app or the Robinhood app to track your daily gains, it is easy to get caught up in the minute-to-minute fluctuations. But if you step back and look at the sector momentum, drones and autonomous systems are moving from being a niche interest to a major budget priority for the Department of Defense and international governments. The company's recent acquisition of RoboTeam is a perfect example of this. They are no longer just an aerial drone company, they are now a multi-domain autonomy platform. They have robots on the ground and robots in the air, all connected by their own private wireless tech. This integrated approach is what sets them apart from the dozens of other drone startups you might see on Interactive Brokers' stock trading lists. Looking at the older reports and past performance, it is clear that Ondas has been through the fire. They spent years as a small-cap company with big dreams and a tight balance sheet. The net losses were significant, and for a long time the going concern language in their filings was a major red flag for anyone doing serious self-investing. But the 2025 results changed the conversation. Growing revenue six-fold in a single year isn't something that happens by accident. They hit $10 million in revenue in the third quarter of 2025, which was a massive jump from the million-dollar quarters of the year before. This proved that the business model could scale. Now the challenge is execution. Can they take that $1.5 billion in cash and turn it into $500 million in revenue by 2030? Management thinks so, and they have even hinted that $300 million is a conservative target. For those of you using Schwab Intelligent Portfolios or a SoFi robo-advisor, you might not see Ondas in your automated holdings yet because it still carries that high volatility tag. But for an individual brokerage account, this is the kind of stock that defines a portfolio's performance over a decade. The risks are real, though. We cannot ignore the fact that they are still losing money on a net basis. The operating expenses are high because they are integrating multiple companies at once. There is always the risk that the integration of RoboTeam or Apero Motion hits a snag, or that a government contract gets delayed. We saw a hint of this when the stock pulled back after the news that they were registering shares for resale by former shareholders of companies they acquired. That creates supply pressure in the market, meaning there are more shares available to be sold, which can cap the price in the short term. The future outlook for Ondas hinges on two things: the 2026 revenue target and the efficiency of their cash spend. If they hit that $180 million mark, they will likely be the dominant player in the small-scale autonomous defense market. They are already beating companies like AeroVironment in terms of pure sales growth percentage, even if they are much smaller in absolute terms. Catalysts to watch include new orders for the Iron Drone system at major airports and the rollout of their border protection systems. We are already hearing about a strategic tender involving thousands of drones. If that moves from the tender phase to the revenue phase, 12.42 USD will look like a steal in hindsight. However, if the government delays those budgets or if competitors like Red Cat Holdings start eating their lunch, the stock could easily retest its previous lows. Investors using the Fidelity Trading Platform or Interactive Brokers platform should be watching the volume. We have seen days with over 100 million shares traded, which is incredible for a company of this size. High volume usually means institutional repositioning. When you see big blocks of shares moving, it's usually not retail traders on their phones, it's the big desks at Fidelity Investments or other major funds making a move. This level of interest suggests that Ondas is no longer under the radar. It is now a focal point for the entire defense tech sector. The expectation was that the stock would slowly grind higher as it proved its tech. The reality is that it has become a high-stakes battlefield for investors who either believe in the total automation